Welcome to Accounts Payable Training for Business Central and NAV users. Amanda here from marketing, and I'm joined by the wonderful Lynn Smith, our Business Central expert. So she's going to walk you through how to effectively manage your accounts payable tasks. Handing over to you, Lynn.
Thanks, Amanda, and welcome everyone to our Accounts Payable Training for Dynamics 365 Business Central, or BC as we affectionately refer to it as. So what we're going to do today is I've taken the role, the accounts payable role, and I've broken it down into different areas or different functions. So what I'm going to show you is basically setting up and managing your vendors. We're going to be looking at processing some transactions in relation to your role as an accounts payable person. We're then going to look at how we can make sure that you pay on time. We'll look at what we can do through Outlook. Now, not many people may be using Outlook, but I'll just show you what you can do with your vendors. And then we're just going to have a quick look at the reports. I'm just going to touch base on AP automation. So to start with, I'm going to go and have a look at vendors and how we can set them up. So when it comes to setting up vendors, we're obviously going to look at vendor templates. That's something you may want to use. Just all the important fields that you would need, not only for your role, but also for the functionality in the rest of the system. And again, we're just going to have a look at how you can quickly update your vendors and also look at some of the vendor statistics. So let's go and have a look at that. So to start with, you can use what we would call vendor templates. So if I just go up to here. So vendor templates are pretty useful when you've got common vendors that you're trying to always create, and you need to always have the default set out. So if I just have a look at my blank vendor card, in fact, maybe let's just not go to that one. Let's go to the next one here. So this is for a cash payment vendor. So again, you can basically set up what the description is, is it running off a particular series? In my case, all my vendors will always be from AU. So I'm always going to, by default, have AU populated. I could say, well, how do I want to send my documents out? So I always want to use email, and therefore I can set this up as a default. And again, all my posting groups, so I can set my posting groups up as default as well. And then again, if there was something like payment terms, because this was actually a template for a cash vendor, I can always do the payment terms code. So in this case, I'm always going to have the COD there, so you can just drop down and choose. This is cash on delivery, and then I've also got my payment payment method code. In this case, well, this is for a cash supplier that I would be paying. So by default, when I set up a new vendor, I will always have that template in place for someone who's cash, which could be slightly different to someone where it would be a business to business or bank. So if I come in and have a look at this one, you'll see that the defaults are going to be slightly different, and they're just going to be different down here on the payment terms. But at least I don't have to keep filling out this information every time I create a new vendor. So what you would do is, if you are going to create a new vendor, you would obviously come into here, into vendors, and then you could actually go new and then pick up one of those particular templates, and then I can go into OK. And again, all the defaults will automatically be there for me. As you can see, if I scroll down into my payment methods, you can see all that information is already set there, and also my posting group. So everything that I had as a default will come through. There's my AU as well. So that's all come through as a default, just allowing me to basically finish off and put the information that I need to put in. I'm actually just going to come out of there for now and leave that one alone. And I'm actually going to just concentrate on a vendor that I've already set up. So I'm going to actually use one here called Fabricam. So again, once you've got your screen open, you obviously put in this vendor's name. Again, this is, if I had this set as a default, I could or update that at any point in time I can. Again, there's a useful field here that you can put vendors on hold. So basically you can still purchase them, but you won't actually allow anyone to process any payment, or you could actually block that vendor altogether. So basically means nobody can raise a purchase order or a purchase invoice or anything along those lines. Or you may allow the purchasing still to go ahead, but we're not actually going to be paying them until obviously we sort out any issues that we may have with them. You have your address details, so this will obviously be the invoice address that you will be sending your remittances to. And again, don't forget you've got your contacts as well. So again, if you've got more contacts in the company, so rather than the payroll, the person that you are dealing with, you can actually add in more people such as the accountants and all the rest of it. I think one of the other fields we've got here is our purchaser code. So again, this is where you can set up the default buyer if you wanted to. In that case, that would just flow through to all the documents that you would be raising. And so you have got your billing address along this line, you've got your contacts. The other one that is quite important, if this is a supplier where you're purchasing from overseas, you may also just want to put the currency that you will maintain their account in. So in my case, I could actually make it US dollars if I wanted to. So I would just come in and put in USD or leave it, and it will obviously transact in the basic currency, which will be Australian dollars. Don't forget, we've also got our posting groups. So the vendor posting group is basically telling me which control account it's going to go to in my balance sheet. And obviously along this side will be any purchase expenses that's going to be applicable, and whether there's going to be any GST at all along that side. Raising, when you're purchasing, are we putting GST onto the supplier purchase order or onto the purchase invoice? Again, you may want to record their ABN. I'm not sure if anybody actually handles withholding tax, but that can be taken care of in the system. But generally speaking, we would just use the ABN number in there. We've also got down here, as I mentioned, your payment terms, payment method, also bank accounts. So again, if your supplier has got different bank accounts that you can pay into, you can actually set those up with the different details, as you can see, and then you can just choose one as the main default bank account, so that when you're creating the payment and creating an EFT file, it will use those banking details. So while I've also got here my payment terms, which is basically I've got to pay that particular vendor within 1 month and I get 8% discount if I pay before the due date. You've also got a cash flow payment terms code. So if any of you are looking at doing cash flow forecasting in this system, sometimes, well, even though you may have to, or there's an agreement you pay within 1 month, from a cash flow reporting, you only pay it in 60 days. So you can actually use 60 days for the cash flow, or you can actually bring it right forward and go, you know what, from a cash flow point of view, let me set it to 7 days. And I think the only other thing we need to do on the vendor record is basically, if you have location code, every time that you raise a purchase order for the supplier, it will use that location code. The location code, remember, is your warehouse code. That basically will use that as a default every time you're raising your PO. So while it may not be of any use to you in the accounts payable role, it certainly might make things easier for those who are raising the purchase order. And again, the shipment method as well. If all this information is used, especially if it's a foreign vendor, it might be useful to hold this information, just making the guys who do the purchase ordering a little bit easier. And again, the other one that they would most probably use is the lead time calculation. So instead of populating every single item in your system with the lead time, you can say every time I order something from Fabricam, it normally takes 1 month to get here. So we've got just one place to maintain rather than thousands of particular items. There's also another one here called over receipting code. And again, it's not really with the accounts payable role, but more for those on the purchasing side. But if you are maintaining these records, it's really good to have an option here where you can allow them to receive up to over 10% of the quantity ordered. So if they've ordered 10, in this case, we will allow 11 to be receipted without any questions being asked. And again, if you're using the microchannel banking extension, there will be extra information you may need to record down here, whether you're doing EFTs or B payments, and obviously the BPay biller code and the BPay reference number for this particular vendor, and the same with the EFT lodgement site. So some of you will get to see this section, some of you won't, just depends on whether you have actually got that extension and using it. The other thing that some people will sometimes use is dimensions. I find a lot of people do not use dimensions on the actual vendors, more on the items and the customers. But if you wanted to, you could also use your dimensions at this point too. So once you've actually started using your vendor in the background, the system's creating a whole lot of statistics, and it's a page that most people don't really go to or not aware that it's there. If you go to vendor and then go into statistics, you can see there's my balance, there's my outstanding orders, amount received, not invoiced. So it's giving you a whole lot of stats there. And again, what it's showing me this period for March and this year, and what did I do last year and to date. So it's just giving you some stats so you can see what you spent with the vendor last year as opposed to what you're spending this particular period or this whole year altogether. So you can see this year I spent 31,000, but last year I spent a total of 98,000 as well. The other useful thing on the vendor card is under Navigate, we've also got document layouts. So if you've got your different layouts and you're sending them out to different people, so my purchase order, I can choose the layout that I'm using for this particular vendor. So I may have a foreign purchase order as opposed to a local vendor layout. And in that case, I can actually choose them here in the custom description. And again, I can actually say, well, who do I normally send my purchase orders to? In this case, it would be the buyer. But when I send the remittance, I will most probably send that to someone in the accounts payable team. In that case, I will go to select from contacts, pick up the right contact. So in this case, I'll just pick up Crystal and her email address will go into there. So don't forget, you can have different layouts and you can also by default choose the different people who will receive that particular document. Obviously, when you're doing your send by profile, so up here when I was talking about my document sending with profile, I've sent one up with email the documents but with prompt, just in case I want to add anybody extra into there. If my details are correct, I can actually do it email documents with no prompt. And then don't forget, on all these screens, you've got your fact box. So again, I can have the information as I go on to the different vendors. The fact box will obviously change with all the details. And again, when I drill into the actual vendor itself, I've also got the fact box coming up there too. All right, so that's just a bit of information around setting up your vendors and the information that you need to hold. And don't forget, there's also all the price lists. Now, for some of you, the pricing method has changed within BC within the last couple of releases. So you will have slightly different views depending whether you've turned on the new feature. And if you have turned it on, it will take everything over. But again, if you're not sure on this or whether it's happened, get to speak to your account manager and they can get in touch with your consultant and take you through this. But you can have like default prices, you can have prices that are particular to a particular vendor, and at the same time I can go in and see what discounts I may or may not get from a vendor based on a certain item group or individual items. So again, if you're not sure about this new pricing feature, get hold of the account manager who can then talk to your consultant and sort that out for you. So let's go and have a look. So here I'm going to have a quick look and we're going to just look at processing some transactions. So generally speaking, when you're the buyers will actually raise all the purchase orders based on what they need to get in the way of stock. But sometimes you may need to raise a purchase order for services. Your photocopier may break down or you may need to order more ink, and it might be a policy within the company to actually raise a purchase order, and I'll take you through to the invoice side. We'll also have a quick look at workflow approvals and then something else called item charges. So if I have a quick look, and I've erased these documents up front just for processing time. Again, please note I am using the business manager role, so my layout may look different to you. Some of you may be using the accountant's payroll, in which case what you'll see on your screen will be slightly different to me. But right now, as you see, I am using the business manager role. So let's go in and have a look at my outstanding purchase orders. And I'm just going to look for 104, which is one I've already preset. So this is my office supplies company. And again, this is where I was talking about that you may need to raise as a procedure within the company where you would have to raise purchase orders for everything. If you are ordering, in this case, I have arranged a cleaning contract with my office supplies. So I have two choices here. I can either choose GL account, pick up my GL account, which is my cleaning account. And I've actually just displayed the second description, and I put cleaning contract 2022, and obviously I've put the full amount in there. And don't forget, if you are using dimensions, all the dimension fields will actually come through as well. The other thing is, if you don't want people accessing directly to GL accounts and putting things in the wrong place, you could have set up items. So in this case, I've got 1011, which is an item called stationery. And again, I'm ordering photo paper for the photocopier. So if I just turn on the fact box and I scroll down, I'm getting to the line details section here. So whichever line I'm on, as you can see, the details here would change. And if I was to click on there, it would take me straight through to my GL account. Hopefully. I'm not doing that today. So let's go back down to the item. And if I drill into the number 1011, that should open with my item, and it has. So here I've set up a non-inventory, or what I would call a service item card. So basically I'm not tracking inventory as such, so I'm just doing a service. But what you would need to do to use these things is actually set up a general product posting group. And obviously you're going to have the GST product posting group, but generally this one here, the services product posting group. And then what that will then allow you to do is, instead of somebody coming along and guessing where stationery has to go to, by using that general product posting group, you can point it directly to the correct GL accounts. So if you're not raising the purchase order, but you're leaving it to someone else to do, and you don't trust them to pick up the right GL account, you can create what we would call a non-inventory or a service item code, but you would then have to, on that, and I'll just go back into it and show it to you, on the general product posting group, you would have to have one here called stationery and pointed directly to the stationery account. So once I have got this particular invoice in, obviously I've done the contract, the paper for the photocopier has arrived. All you would need to do is put in the vendor's invoice number, post it through, and receive an invoice, and that will go through and post through to the GL and close out the purchase order. So that's the purchase order gone. Again, on your side, what you would most probably be looking at is looking at purchase orders, and now the stock may have come into the system, the guys in the warehouse have done the receipt, you now get the invoice, and it's now there for you to process the actual supplier's invoice. So again, I have also got on here, I have a filter button, and you can actually choose in here, like just show me all the vendors or the ones where I have amount received, not invoiced. So I can set up a default view if I wanted to say, well, just show me the ones where they've received and not invoiced. You know, I don't really want to be looking at these particular purchase orders down here because they haven't come in yet. But these ones I may have, or again, you can actually just click on the heading and it will sort it out, and here are all the invoices. I'm just actually going to look for a particular one that I have set up. So let's go 106003. So here it is, worldwide importers. And all you would need to do is come through once the stuff has been received, come through, obviously match up the invoice, checking all the quantities, checking all the items, checking all the invoice documents. And once you're happy with all of that, enter the invoice number. And then all you would need to do from there is obviously post the supplier's invoice. But it's just a case of using your filtering buttons. As I said, you can filter out, and I can then do another one where I can say it's an order, and where the amount received invoice is greater than 0, I can then filter them that, and then it will just show me all the ones where I've got ready to be invoiced. So that's one way you can do it. The other one I've got here is my workflow templates. What we find a lot on the purchasing side is basically people will ask, well, we only want certain people to approve documents and only over certain values. So Business Central comes up with a whole lot of workflow templates. And in here we can see these are the default ones. And all we would need to do is basically pick these up, go new, and create a new workflow from the template. I've already done that with some of them. So these are the ones that I've now created for my system. And here's what I'm going to look at. So this is when the purchase order release approval is over $500. So again, you may be approving them. It may also go for not only approval at the purchase order stage, but also at the invoice stage. So if we have a look at this one here, and I'll just work through this one, which is approval, purchase invoice with approval workflow for anything over $500. So basically we would come in and we say, well, if it's an invoice and it's open and the amount is greater than $500, then what's going to happen? We'll add a record restriction. So the add a restriction would actually be add the restriction, set the document status to pending, and then send it off for approval. Well, who's it going to go to? So in my case, I've got a workflow user group, and the workflow user group I've got is AP invoice. So what you would do is you'll set up all these different approval groups based on authority and their amounts. And if I actually go in and edit this one, you can see that basically anything over 500 has to come to me for approval. But I have another workflow user group, but this is for purchases. So basically if purchase orders were over a certain value, it would obviously go to Melanie, then it would come to Simon, it would come to me. And you can also do this on the sales side as well. So obviously I've got a few sales approval processes in place, and these would be the people I would actually use. So we can actually set up those different groups and apply them. We can also use what we would call an approver and use an approver user chain as well. So let me just go in and have a look at my approver user chains. Here's approval user setup. And again, so if Christy places an order, I'm the approver, but I can only go up to $1,000. If I place something, then Melanie has to approve it, and she can go up to $2,000. If Melanie places anything, it then will go to Simon, and he's actually got unlimited. And again, when we're sending out notifications, how do we send them out? We send them out by email, and therefore people can get the notifications that they've got something to actually approve. So in my case, I've obviously done a few, and in my case, I've got these ones here where I've got requests sent approval. I've done quite a few purchase orders. They're over $500, so they're all sitting with someone, and I can see, well, some are sitting with Melanie, some are sitting with Simon. And again, if I sent the notification by email, what will happen is if you have a look here, you can see in there, this will be what will appear in your emails. This is assuming you've got your Outlook linked in with your BC. I've got a purchase invoice 108541 requires your approval. I can go into it within Outlook and actually approve instead of coming back into BC and doing it in there. Again, if there was anything there for me to approve, it will appear in my list, and I can either approve it, reject it, or delegate to somebody else. The last part we want to look at on these transactions is something called item charges. So there's two ways, and this is where you get freight and you want to allocate your freight costs onto your actual inventory items. You could use the full-blown landed costs extension that's out there that Microchannel have developed, or you could just use something very simple and easy, such as a freight, an item charge. So I've set up one here, which is freight. And again, all I would do is I would come in and say, well, is this a direct or an indirect cost? So if it's a direct cost, it will add it back to the value of the items. And again, how do I add it back? I can do it by quantity, by tariff, volume, weight, and volume. Sorry, between those different options there. So once we set up our item charges, when we get the invoice from the actual supplier, let me go into purchase invoice. Sorry, no, I need to go to purchase orders. Sorry, where's my purchase orders? And I'll call out this one here, which is 106124. So this is the bill I have received for FedEx for some of the deliveries around the countryside. So obviously put in FedEx, put in the information. And instead of picking up item, I now choose charge item, and I've got my freight amount, and I put $100. I've now got to go and find the actual document that I need to raise the charge against. So I'm going to go into line, item charge assessment, and then from here I can go in and say, well, go and get my receipt lines, and it brings up all the purchase receipt lines out there, and then I can choose the one that I want to, that it will apply to, and assign the quantity to it. So I may have several purchase receipts in here, and I can come in and allocate that 100 accordingly, or I can just go quantity to assign one, and it will do the calculation. And as you can see, my system's got volumes and weights and quantities in there, and it's obviously assigning accordingly. And then once you do that, you would then just put in the invoice number, post it, and it will allocate the cost to the receipts. The receipts, sorry, not to the receipts, but actually to the items that were on that receipt, and adjust the costs behind the scenes. So that's just a few transactions that we believe that the accounts payable rule may or may not be involved with. The next one I want to move on to is registering your vendor payments. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. It's taking a payment for a single vendor. So maybe it's a BPay transaction that you processed and you just want to register it. The other one is where you want to do for a group. So maybe I've done a whole section of BPays and I just want to process them together. Or I can create a payment run and an EFT file creation. So let's go and have a look at the first one. Again, all I need to do is, if I've done like a BPay payment, I would come in, choose my vendors in here. So I've got highlights. So in this case, yes, I've got Fabricam, I've got a balance there. I would go process and just go pay vendor. So I highlight my vendor, click on process pay vendor, and then I can choose which one it is. So I'm going to be paying the top one, and then all I would do is process, create the payment. Obviously, I fill out all the details, so I'm using which template I'm using from my journals. So again, I'm just choosing payment from my general journal templates, fill out all the necessary information, and I can then go OK, and it will create that journal for me, show it up. I can just double check it, make sure it's gone to the right bank account. So there's Fabricam coming in at the bottom here. It's got all the right details. Now, just one thing in there, it's picked up the invoice as well. Please remember, your balancing account must be bank type. If you do not put bank type on there, it will go against the general ledger account, but will not appear on your bank statement. So for it to appear on your bank statement, so you can do a reconciliation, your balancing account type must be bank account, and then you choose your bank account. So that's just doing a single particular payment against a vendor. I can also just basically go up to search and go, well, I'm going to create some payments. Where am I? Sorry, under cash management. So I can go and choose, pay vendor. Sorry, let me just go back into there, pay vendor. There it is. If you use the one from the current page, it's just going to use the pay vendor for that particular vendor itself. But if I use this one, it will now bring back every single invoice that I am due to pay. As you can see, I've got quite a few in here. Now, don't forget that you can actually search. So again, if I'm trying to filter out and just pick up a particular set of people, like I'm just looking for anything that has the word or the string COMP in there, and it's bringing up, so I'm paying all my office supplies. In that case, I would just click on the 3 dots, select more, and I can choose the ones that I actually want to pay. Same process again, process, create payment, go OK. They will then appear on that journal for me, and I can then actually, sorry, I've got one there that I shouldn't be paying, which is this one possibly there. Process, create payment, click on that, and it will add them onto my journal, and I can then just come through, make sure I've got all the right details, including my bank account, and then obviously go in and post that particular journal. So that's another way of doing it. Or as we most probably would all use, if I'm doing a big payment run and I want to start creating EFT files, I will go through to payment run. I've got a specific batch that I set up. As you can see, it's going to have my balancing account in there. I come down, there's my balancing account type bank, and I've chosen my checking account. And again, don't forget, you would come in, process, suggest the vendor payments, obviously put in the last date that you were looking for, or up to, and I've just taken mine to the end of the year. I put in a posting date, which most probably should be today's date. There's my starting document, and this will be an EFT payment. Again, you can filter out, so you may want to filter out on a type of vendor or an individual vendor. It's entirely up to you. And then you will go ahead and press OK. And it will obviously bring back all the lines into your general journal here. And then you can obviously go through that, have a look at it. I do believe in here there should be, under posting, you can do a test report. So you can actually look at it and see what figure you're paying out. Make sure you're paying the right vendors, not paying the right vendors. Get rid of the ones you don't want. You can even add extra ones on. And then when you're ready, you will actually go through, go Actions, EFT, and create that EFT file. And then obviously take that and load that up to your bank. And then if necessary, you can then go through and print out the remittances and get them emailed out to your supplier or your vendor. The other option we wanted to look at is, so that's the main roles that we, or the main functions that you would be doing as an accounts payable person. The other one we wanted to look at was in Outlook, is reviewing your vendor through Outlook. So especially on the sales side, the guys do a lot on using the Outlook and raising sales orders and all the rest of it. And everyone kind of asked me, can we do this with vendors? So let's have a look what's there. So all we've done is we've turned on the Outlook integration in BC. And obviously when I come into here, let's go and find an email from a supplier. So here's Simon. Simon is a vendor of mine. And what will happen is when you click on the 3 dots, so again, I'm just using my Outlook in the web version, and you will now have this option down here called Business Central, and I can have Contact Insights. So I'm just going to have a look and see, well, let me just find more about the company that Simon works for. Let's just see what we owe them. You know, do I owe, you know, he's asking me, do I want to order anything? Let me just go and have a quick look at the vendor and see what's actually happening. So once it's done this, it would bring back all the information for the vendor. Just where all that information is. So here it is. I have an attachment which I can look into, but there's the vendor, there's the balance. And again, without being in BC, I can actually just have a quick look. And if that's not good enough as a screen, I can always click on there and open this up. And again, you're going to get the same layout, the same functionality as you would in BC. It's just like I'm doing it all through Outlook now, so I can have a look at all the money that I do actually owe him. And saying he's obviously wanting me to buy more. Yeah, we haven't spent too much, so I'm quite happy to order again. So that's looking at my vendor ledger entries. You've got all your balances in there. Sometimes the graph will pop up. You've also got my blanket orders, how many other orders have I got, receipts. I've got all the different information here about the supplier. I can also come in and have a look at other information and possibly come in and actually edit the supplier within here. Again, I can only edit it if I've got the relevant permissions within BC, and I can update the information from here. So once Simon says, is there anything else you want to order this week? I go, yeah, okay, we'll do that. I can actually come from here in Business Central, click on purchase order, and it will create a purchase order for me. And then all I need to do is go ahead and start adding out some documents. So already it's saying to me, it's giving me that basically I most probably order 1031 on a regular basis from him. But what happens if I want to add something else? So in this case, I may want to add in here, it's just fetching more rows down there. So let me go and order another chair or something. So yeah, I'll order the Athens desk. And all I would need to do is just come through, put in the quantity to, I may not want this top one. So again, same functionality as I have in BC. And once I've done that, I can just click it and it will then send it out to him as well. So there it is, 106126. And I can then send that out to Simon and it will get sent out to him. Again, if I come back into BC and go and have a look at my purchase orders, there it is, 106126, and there is the order with my Athens desk. So remember, I have done all of this in Outlook without having to be within BC. So for some of you who are out on the road and don't have or don't want to log into BC and go and find the supplier and do all the rest of it, you can quickly do it from within Outlook. The other thing we want to look at is just some of the reporting that we've got here within Business Central. We've obviously got the standard age payables report via the inbox, and I'm just going to look at some Power BI as well. So let's go back to the main menu. Let's come up to here. Pretty much standard. We've got the age payables listing. There it is, so it's down on this list here. So there's aged accounts payable. Obviously you can age it as of today's date based on the due date or the posting date or the document date. Do I want to see the amounts only in local currency or do we want in both? And do I need to see detail or no detail? I like to have everything in detail, so yeah, I'm going to print it in detail. Let's just click preview and this will be the report and it will show up for us. So there it is, and again I'm just going to expand that and there's all my information coming through. I do believe if we go down to the last page, let's get down to page 6, it will give you all your totals down there in local currency. I'm just trying to see if I've actually got someone here in foreign currency. I think I chose the report to be run in local currency, so I'm not seeing it, but I could always choose to run that with foreign currencies as well. And you'll notice that is now stating which currency it's actually being run in. Let me find one that's got US. There's one in Euro. So now it's showing me everything that's in Euro. And when I get down to the last page, I do believe it's giving me the differentiations here between, let me just make that a bit larger so you can see there's all the different currencies that my age accounts payable is reporting in. So just remember that's just toggling that switch there, print amounts in local currency. We've also got send to, and again you can actually schedule this report. So again, if I want this report to be scheduled every week, I can come in, put in the run date formula, start, when do I want it to start by, when do I want it to expand in by. So I want it, let's say, to run every week. So let me just go once a week. I'm starting today, but I obviously want it to finish in about 4 or a couple of months time. Go OK, and it will run a queue for me. So what will happen is all those reports that have been scheduled will actually land up in your report inbox. So here's one that I previously scheduled. I didn't have to run it, it automatically got run for me. I just click on that open it up, and there's my accounts payable reporting for me. Nice and simple and easy. So while there's a lot of other standard reports in here, one of the big things we find is that most people now are using Power BI more and more. So instead of now having to go off to another option into here and running Power BI, you can actually develop the report or get someone to develop that for you, and then you would actually bring it in. So here, if I come in and I can go and select a report, you can bring your Power BI reports into here. I'll just take one of these here. Let me just pick up this one, for instance, and I'll pick up maybe that one. And what will happen is it will then show those reports within BC. So I'm not having to go off to Power BI or anywhere else. It's actually in here. At the moment, I haven't really got anything for payables, but I've got this one here, Power BI for cash forward sales reports. Again, I must really want to look at it as a bigger screen so I can just manage it. And then once it's come up, again, you do have the ability, depending on the type of license you have, you can start looking and playing with some of these field visualizations and all the rest of it. But I just go into view mode, and then that will just show me the screen. And obviously you can start doing drill downs depending on how the report's been written. You can do drill down, slicing and dicing. You know, where am I spending the money? You know, is it on stock? Is it not on stock? All those type of things. So that's just one of the options to give you an idea on what you can do with some of the reporting. Now, the last option we wanted to kind of mention, because we find it's coming up more and more nowadays, is AP automation. So I just want to make sure that you guys are quite clear that there's two types of AP automation. There's expense management, and there's also AP invoice management, which is the actual scanning of invoices, where they will come into your system and they can be matched automatically back against your POs. Now, generally what we're doing is we're taking a couple of these. We're using Xflow, and we're also using Continia. Depending on your requirements, we will look at both those different options. They both come off the Microsoft App Source and work out which one is the best for you. There is obviously other AP automation packages out there, such as Expensify, Concur, and we do the integrations of those back into BC for you. But the ones out the box are basically Xflow and Continia. They automatically do integrate. Obviously, when you get down to AP invoice automation, we've got to train the system to actually learn to start reading suppliers' invoices, and therefore, as it scans it, it will take all that information, convert it, and then obviously match back against an invoice. So just to mention those to you, it's something worth thinking about. And I know there is an upcoming presentation, I think in the next couple of months, and Amanda will give you more details around one of those options. So hopefully that's just giving you an idea of how to look at some of the information, what you need to do in your accounts payable role. So thank you. Amanda, over to you.
Thank you, Lynn, and thanks to everyone for joining us today and taking the time to fine-tune your accounts payable skills. So if you've got any more questions or would like further training for accounts payable or any of Business Central or NAV modules, then let us know. Get in touch with your account manager wherever you are,